This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Cornell Studio Supply, located in the gem city of Dayton, Ohio. Find all your pottery and ceramic sculpture equipment and supplies with the best customer service and world-class workshops. Join us January 16th through the 18th, 2026 for a colored clay and material inclusion workshop with Chris Alvashir and Jillian Park. Visit CornellStudioSupply.com to sign up. Cornell Studio Supply, owned and operated for potters by potters.
This episode is sponsored by Monkey Stuff. Monkey Stuff makes things for makers. We're inspired every day by the craft and creativity of makers and design and manufacture tools and accessories to try to make your making life a bit more delightful. Our products are designed in California, by makers and for makers, and manufactured in the USA. Check out our line of pottery accessories and tools at monkeystuff.com. Follow us on Instagram to see what we're up to in our studios, and keep on making great things.
Welcome to the Tales of a Red Clay Rambler podcast, featuring interviews with culture makers from around the world. This is Ben Carter. I'm going to be your host. If you'd like more information on the show, please visit our website, talesofaredclayrambler.com. Welcome back to episode 557 of the podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Today on the show, I'm joined by Josh Copus, whose career started in ceramics with a focus on wild North Carolina clay and wood firing. In recent years, his creativity has evolved into many forms of entrepreneurship, including hotel and restaurant ownership, as well as being a founding member of an artist collective. In our interview, we talk about his roots in Floyd, Virginia, right up the mountain from Salem, where I grew up, as well as how studio ceramics helped him understand the principles of business. We also discuss the impact of Hurricane Helene, which devastated the town of Marshall, which is the location of multiple of Josh's business ventures. If you'd like to see examples of his work, you can check out joshcopus.com. Before we get to today's interview, I wanted to mention that I will be down in the beautiful island of St. John in the Caribbean, May the 16th through the 23rd with Stephanie Seguin. We're going to be teaching a workshop on interpreting the flora of St. John, so it's going to be a mix of hiking and surface design and making pots. So it's going to be a great 8-day workshop, and we would love for you to be a part of it. If you'd like to register or find out more, you can go to stjohnvipottery.com/workshops. Without further ado, we'll get to the interview. Let's start talking about Floyd in Southwest Virginia, because we're both Southwest Virginians.
Proud.
Yeah. Can you talk about growing up in Floyd?
Yeah, I'm from Floyd, and it was a great place to grow up. Especially now looking back on it, there's more nostalgia. I think when I was there, you don't realize exactly how awesome it is, because it feels like a little tiny town that doesn't have anything going for it, and you're always trying to, like, how do we get out of here, and let's go to Blacksburg. But Floyd is an interesting place. It's a very rural part of southwestern Virginia, and it's Appalachia, and my family are from off, so they were back to the landers that moved into Floyd, and there was a huge group of people from that kind of alternative community that moved there, which really created a period of sort of two separate groups of people. And, when that happened, when I was a kid, it was very distinct. I got a lot of like, you're not from here stuff. And, that was always very confusing to me, because I was like, well, this is where I'm from, and I felt that. I mean, I was a Floyd kid, we played in the creeks and ran through the woods, and I was as from that place as possible. But, there's a thing in Appalachia where, they say it takes 6 generations for you to be from a place. And I think there's a balance in there. Like, I always felt it was kind of hurtful when kids would say things like, you're not from here. And as I grow up, I realize that there is something to generationally knowing a place that you can't recreate. So I think that's worth valuing and acknowledging, but also like, we can't close the door. And what happened in Floyd was really a beautiful story, which was that as things grew and evolved and changed, and actually kids are the key, like adults have all these assumptions and stereotypes, and, we were from hippie holler, and, those people aren't our people. And kids are just like, dude, you like baseball? I'm like, yeah, I love baseball. They're like, cool, well, let's do baseball, And so there's this thing where it's like kids just, I started going to public school in 5th grade. I was homeschooled, and then I went to Blue Mountain School, which was just really not even a school at that point. But when I went to public school, I made all these new friends, and they started coming over to my house, and I went to their house, and we played on the same sports teams. And basically, like, everyone started to realize that they had more in common than they had that separated them. And then that community kind of came together in a really beautiful way. And, I think that's been an asset to Floyd. And, there is something really important about understanding a place through generations, but you need new energy and new ideas. So, that's been a big influence. And, I take my childhood and my experience growing up in Floyd, and I consider that to be the foundation of everything I do as an adult. And another component for me with that was that, my community was full of artists and full of creative people, and I saw that as a model of like a life. And I think that's really different from a lot of kids that I went to art school, where they didn't have any model for what that looked like. And it was also like, even like concerning to their parents, like, you're going to be an artist, like, how are you going to make a living? And I always joked, like, if I told my mom I wanted to be like a lawyer, she would be like, oh my God, like, where have we gone wrong? Like, why don't you do something creative with your life? Because that's what everyone in my alternative community did. It was, no one had a straight job. And so it was very normal. And I saw people that were doing it and living lives that were, successful lives by any metric. And I think you realize there's like, you take the mystique out of it. Like, it's just showing up every day. And I realized none of those people are smarter than me or harder working than me. Like, if they can do it, I can do it. So it always felt like very attainable to me, to grow up and be an artist seemed like a very normal thing to do, which I think was different than like a lot of the childhoods and upbringings of my peers.
When did you start working in clay in earnest, like the way we think about clay now?
Yeah, that's actually a really good story. So like I said, I grew up around a lot of artists, and they're like your friend's parents. So I was like vaguely aware of what they did. I was, it's like, dude, let's do a fort, I don't care that your mom's some, like, like Donna Paulsino and Rick Hensley and Sylvie Granatelli and Ellen Shankin. Like, these are all very important, renowned potters, and they're also just my friends' parents. And so, Rick Hensley was my Little League baseball coach. And, I didn't realize that he was a big deal till after I left Floyd. Like, he was just Hayden's dad. Again, I said, it's normal. So I don't remember really caring about what they were doing. I think we were in those studios, certainly playing around. But when I was 15 years old, my friend Seth, his dad was a potter. Tom Phelps was his name. And, we were hanging out. We were teenagers. We were making some questionable life choices, as you do. And, I had a lot of energy, and people always say, you have a lot of energy. I'm like, you have no idea how calm I am now. But it was good. It was good, teenage energy. My stoke level was really high, but in a way that, I meet people like Tom showed me my life's work when I was 15 years old. And it's a really incredible thing to have that happen. I had been working, since I was 13. I worked at the dump. I was washing dishes at a little restaurant down from my house, kind of already creating a relationship with work that was work sucks. You just do it so you can get money. I didn't really see work as something that I could enjoy. And Tom was like, we were going to do these face pots, and, I'll throw the pots and you guys build these weird faces on them. And I'm going to take them to my shows and I'll sell them and I'll give you half the money. And I didn't know anything about face jugs. And I remember thinking that's never going to work. Who would buy that stuff, man? Dude, but seems cool. Seems like a cool thing to do. So I just remember being I'm going to do that because it's cool and not because it's actually going to generate any, money for me. And, but Tom knew, and it totally worked. And I remember the moment etched into my mind. He came back from the show and he said, the things that you made, I sold, and he gave me the money. And I just remember thinking I feel like I have discovered the meaning of life. For real. I just got paid to do something that I was going to do anyways, just because I wanted to do it. And that was this big light bulb. And then, me, I was telling all my friends, I was like, dude, you got to get in on this. We just go to this pottery studio and we can hang out and, we make these face jugs and then Tom sells them. And so Tom went from kind of being this old hippie potter to being the center of the Floyd County teen scene, in a matter of months. There was 18 kids there every day. And we called it Tom's Fruit Stand. And he ate it up, man. He loved it. It was his place we would go there after school and make these face jugs. And Tom was a beautiful mentor in that he wasn't really a teacher as far as technique. He just provided this space and then let us fill it, which I've always seen as that's what I want to do. He didn't give us too much information or give us any real guardrails. He basically was the weirder you can make these things, the better they sell. And we were we can run with that. And so I did that all through high school. I never really, even during that time, I loved it and it was a part of my identity. And I learned so much from Tom, and I always credit him, other than my parents. He is the largest, most influential role model in my life. He's not with us anymore, but.
And this is the Tom that sold pots on the Roanoke City Market.
Yeah.
I saw his pots
Tom.
Since I was 6 years old.
Totally. He did the Roanoke City Market. He was a character. He had the blackest hair, never had a gray hair in his life. right to the end. And he had a laugh that you could hear from 100 yards away. And I mean, he's there's certain people in my life where you're just like, you can't write this person. Like Tom's like that. He's like a character in a way that like, if you wrote him in a book, you would be like, man, that was good. He was great to me. And Floyd was like that too, where I have a lot of people that were, Donna Paulsino is one of my moms. Like I have like 10 moms and like, it's great. I need 10 moms. But we would, when I was growing up, I would spend half the nights of the week at Tom's house. Not because I had like a broken home or anything, just because that's how it worked. Like I'll be like, hey mom, I'm like gonna live at Tom's house this week. She's like, that's cool. But so when I went to Asheville, I went to college. I never thought I would go to college. I never really liked school. I mean, I knew how to like get by and work it, but I had an authority kind of complex, listened to a lot of Rage Against the Machine. Like it was a lot of that energy. But one thing happened, led to another. I ended up moving to Asheville to go to Warren Wilson, which is a great college outside of Asheville. They have a work program. And I like, because of the way I grew up, like I never thought you would go to college for art or like, I'm like that's, neither of my parents went to college. Like I was the first person in my family to go. And, I was like, you go there for something smart. So I was like, I'm not that smart, or I just thought, I was like, I'll be an environmental science major. Cause I thought that was like, I like trees. I didn't realize how much science is a part of environmental science. It's like mostly science. And so I had this experience where Warren Wilson is a work college. And so because I had a background doing ceramics for Tom, I got on the work crew, like in the ceramic studio. Basically, you're like the tech, which meant that I had the keys to the studio, and that was the end for me. Like I failed all my science classes, not because I was like, screwing off, but I would be like on the way to biology class and just be like, you turn to the studio. Like that was the moment where like Tom planted the seed, but that was the moment where it like sprouted. And from that point on, it was, I was infected. It was like, I've seen it in other young people. I'm like, ooh, dude, like you got it bad. And that was it. I worked in the studio. I was like, this is going to be my life, like from that point on. So I guess I was like 19 at that point.
Yeah, and for people that aren't familiar with Warren Wilson, because I think there's only 3 work schools in America, right? Yeah. It's Berea, Warren Wilson, and whatever that one in Washington was.
Evergreen might be one.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
Maybe there's some. I think Warren Wilson and Berea are the main 2, and they actually have a deep history in Appalachian culture. They were created as work colleges, farm schools. The Asheville Teachers College was at Warren Wilson, and it was designed for Appalachian kids to learn skills, and then they've retained that history, and it's part of their curriculum, and it's really good. So at Warren Wilson, it's actually the triad of academics, work, and service. And so everyone that's there, you have a job. And when I was there, you worked 15 hours a week at your job on campus. I was fortunate to be on the art crew, but like my first year, I was the garbage man, which also I had some history with and I loved. But, it teaches you like the work can be a great educational opportunity. And it certainly was for me. And a lot of my friends that went to Warren Wilson, have environmental science degrees, but they were on the electricians crew and now they're electricians. And it's an important part of what the school does.
At what point did ClaySpace come into it? Well, first describe what that is, and then tell me like how that started.
Yeah, so Clay Space is an artist collective that I founded in 2003 in the River Arts District in Asheville, but it was sort of kind of still the River home bum kind of prostitute district. It wasn't like the earliest of days, but 2003 River Arts District, you were there.
Yeah. How was that?
It was, set a couch on fire, nobody asks questions kind of place. So I went from Warren Wilson. I worked for Highwater for a year while I was on the waiting list to get into the Haywood Community College program, which I attended for 2 years. Great professional crafts program west of Asheville. Then I went to UNCA. I wanted to get a BFA. I wanted the more well-rounded arts education. I knew early on that like I loved pottery, but just doing pottery was not going to be enough for me. Like I needed more. So I already had a connection to UNCA. I had been firing the wood kiln that Hunter Stamps built there. I was a part of that crew when I was not even a student there. So it felt like a very easy, and I wanted to stay in Asheville. I had this deep connection to Asheville at that point. So when I went to UNCA, I had to kind of like start over again in a way, like as a, all my credits didn't really transfer. They were like, you're going to be in Ceramics 1. And I was, at that point, had been through 2 years of Haywood professional crafts program. I was like doing gallery shows and like doing craft shows and like basically working professionally as a potter. And, I was kind of starting over again in academia. So they were like, you can get like a shelf and also, like no loud rap music and the studio closes at midnight. And like all of those things were just like non-negotiables for me. And so I had friends in the River Arts District and a studio became available. John Payne had bought the Wedge building and was curating it with like kind of young artists that he saw potential in. And so I got, thrown into that thing. So I rented 1,500 square feet for $500 a month in this old warehouse building that was named the Wedge. And the guy who owned it lived there and made these incredible dinosaur marionette metal sculptures. And the whole place was like teeming with scene. It was like all these kids, we were living in the building illegally. And, John was like, don't call me ever to fix, it basically was like, just figure it out. And Clay Space is, been in existence for 23 years now. It's basically a gallery at this point. And it started in the most humblest of ways. I had two friends at UNCA that I was like, y'all should come work in this studio. Like we can work all night long, listen to whatever music we want. We can drink beer and just be ourselves. And so that was the beginning. It was just me and Matt Jacobs and Sean Fairbridge down there, like just figuring it out. And then, Eric Kanaka moved in and he was in there for like 10 years. And me and Eric, we were kind of coming up at the same time. And there was this amazing, like kind of co-mentoring and we were sort of teaching and learning from each other. And, it was great to be on that journey with someone, and the energy in that studio, it was not a polished space, but it was raw and it was perfect at the time. And, the reason it's still in existence is we've continued to pivot and change and evolve, like as the neighborhood has changed and evolved. So it started as 100% completely a making space. Then we added a gallery component as the River Arts District became more palatable and, more tourists started coming down and you actually could sell some art there. We just switched the percentage. So basically now there's 13 members. It's still a collective. I'm the founder, but I'm not the leader. It's an amazing model for longevity, and it is a gallery, and it really has helped many artists like make the switch from part-time ceramics, part-time bartender to full-time. It's very lucrative, and Clay Space is not it's an idea. It's not a legal entity. And I've kept it that way intentionally. I have a bunch of legal entities, and I'm like, it's actually easier this way. So we staff it internally. It's a membership-based organization. Each member pays a percentage for their share, and then each share represents 1 day a week in the gallery. And we just have Square accounts, and we toggle between. So you get the money for your sale same day. Clay Space doesn't take a cut. I don't care if you do your sales tax. It's not my thing. It's that. There's no administrative cost. Each member is their own business. That's simple.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. The collection exists as an online resource for research and inspiration, featuring photos of over 4,000 objects made by over 1,000 artists. The images are high quality and can be used with no permission required, making them a great resource for students and teachers. To find out more, visit rosenfieldcollection.com. There's a lot of your life that goes from Clay Space to Marshall, but I want to compare the two. Yeah. So now at this point, you own a hotel.
Yeah.
You own Zadie's Market.
Yep.
You own, there's a couple other things.
I know, there's a bunch, Ben.
But what I want to ask you is about entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So personality-wise, you commit. You commit in the work, you commit in your businesses.
Yep.
Do you think you were born an entrepreneur, or do you think you had to cultivate this commitment?
That's a great question. I was born this way, but I had to learn to see my power and do it on my terms. And what I mean by that is I was very intimidated by business. And I think a lot of artists feel that way. I didn't start making ceramics because I was going to go into business as a potter. I just started making pottery and then tried to figure out how to make it a business. Most of the people I know, that's the path that they took. They weren't like, I'm going to do what would be a great idea for a business? Pottery. And so you start from that as a foundation, and, taxes feel intense, and accounting. And what I had to learn was that creativity is my greatest resource. And that's when I say I'm a creative entrepreneur. That's the title that I use, because it puts creativity first. And that's the key for me, is I have a really good ability as an artist and as a creative problem solver to see things in the world that normal brained people can't really see very well. And then use my abilities to make them special or magical, or and I'm not talking about the operations. It's mostly this big picture thing, I think, is what's first for me. And then the thing that I had to learn was that I am a great business person. I'm just not a great accountant. And that's
honest.
Is a job that you outsource. And it's not the same thing. I used to equate being a good business person with being a good bookkeeper. And I'm not a great bookkeeper. I hire a bookkeeper who's great at it. And that's the difference. And I have a great accountant who is his mind is made for that shit. And all I need to know is I have a basic understanding so that I can drive the boat and drive, this is where we're headed. And I know the the broad strokes of it. Like, it's not like I put my head in the sand and I haven't engaged with that. Like, I think there's two things that happen. Like, if you're not good at something, sometimes it's really good to just acknowledge that, find someone who's good at it and let them take that off your plate. Sometimes when you're not good at something, it is important to challenge yourself to learn it. Like, I don't think you want to take everything that I'm really good at identifying strengths and weaknesses, like within myself and within my team. And I try to put people in positions to create success. Sometimes challenging yourself is important. And so, like, there are things in my life that I'm not naturally prone to that I force myself to, like, tackle because I don't want to be avoidant. But there are other things where it's like, dude, that's not your highest and best use. Like, I need to focus on what I'm good at and delegate as much as possible. And so for me, it was like unlocking this understanding that, like, man, I am a good business person as an artist. And that's like what makes me good. And that's when everything switched for me, man. Like, I started not being afraid of it and running towards it and like understanding also for me, like we all have resources and skills. And one of my skills is people. It's one of my greatest resources. I delve deep in social capital, and basically every successful thing that I've ever done in this world is about people and connections. Like, that's where it starts from. It also always comes from a place of art and creativity. Like, when I did the jail, I bought an old jail at a property auction with 3 other people. I never once thought about that as real estate. I always thought about it as sculpture. And, like, that's what makes it good. Like, it wasn't a real estate deal. It was an art project. And, like, I think the key with that is, like, there's this world, and, like, are you going to engage with it on the terms of that world, or are you going to take your terms to that place and be like, I'm engaging with you on my terms. This is my attitude, and I'm going to do things through the lens that I see them instead of trying to look through this other lens that is disorienting. Like, that lens I can't see through that lens. And if you keep trying to put those glasses on and look through this lens that's not yours, like, you're not going to do well. So, like, that was the key, is just, like, knowing that power and feeling that power in myself, and then using my relationship with people, which is a great resource. And it's something that I'm naturally good at, not in a manipulative way, in a genuine way. Like, I genuinely love people, and I value partnerships, and relationships are important to me, and I invest in them. So it's not like, what can you do for me? It's like, how can we do it together? And that's a very different attitude, because it's not about taking advantage of people or using them. It's about collaborating to do things. And that's led to, the jail is that story, the work that we're doing in High Point, which is very exciting work, the Dispel Institute. I've known Alex since 2017, and that whole thing came out of our relationship and friendship, and it's allowed me, through his generosity, through my relationship with my co-collaborator, May Wong, I go there now, and I'm able to make work that is at a scale that I don't have that capacity or facility in my own studio, and I don't need it because of this network of relationships. And, to anyone who's listening, especially young people, I'm always like, if anyone ever asks you how you're going to make a living as an artist, you tell them, any way I want. I'll do it any way I want. You can do anything you want in the world, because actually right now in this space, I think creative thinking is more valuable than ever before. Like, we don't need button pushers and lever pullers and yes men, like, even the tech industry, like, they're hiring artists to think, because that's what we're good at.
Well, yeah. Let's talk about problem solving. So you were looking at a jail, the old Marshall jail, but what you saw is a building that could have a hotel, that could have the restaurant. Like, tell me how you saw that. Like, was that evolving in the way that, like, a line of pictures gets better when you make the 10th one, or did you see the idea finished in your head?
Day one, first day in there, saw it. Like, so obvious, like almost aggravatingly obvious, because I would be talking to people and being like, so this is going to go here and this over here. And they're just like, dude, we cannot see it. Like, we are literally just see a pile of shit. And like, I'm like, no, it's really good. Trust me. And, you know, they're like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I know. That's actually why I'm going to pull this off. Because, like, you got to be a little crazy. I think that's an important thing to note. You know, you got to take a risk. You got to not be afraid and take a leap and like learn how to manage stress and prioritize things and not let it destroy you. Because the gravity of a project like that, you know, one victory, how do you eat the elephant? It's one bite at a time. So honestly, it was like I had a vision. My work is about materiality. So I engaged that building from a material standpoint, and it was like, this is we can work with, you know? Like, when people would look at it, they would see what it was, which was a jail. It was the oldest operational jail in the state. It only closed in 2012. There was no other use between a jail and us buying it. Like, when people are like, what was it like in there? I'm like, just imagine an old jail. That's what it was. But what I was able to see was the materiality. Like, I was like, this is metal and brick and concrete. And like, these are materials I can work with. And like the metal, especially, like, you would look at it, or someone would look at it and see like a cage. And I just saw the material. I was like, the material is not good or bad. Like, it does not have that. It's just the material, and it's the context that creates that kind of good, or like a cage is bad. It's not the material's fault. It's what we made it do. And so like, I just looked at that material as this kind of like benign thing that I could switch the context and change what it was doing. And the material itself is actually inherently beautiful. Like, so that's what I did. I cut it up. I moved it around. I changed all the surfaces. Like, everything was white in there, and it was, you know, cold and institutional. And now it's all warm, and so especially with the metal, like, sometimes all I did was change the surface from white to like this beautiful rust patina. And it changes everything, the whole mood. Didn't change anything else. Just a metal wall. It's a different color, and it's like leather now, and it's soft, and it's inviting, and it's still hard, but it's not harsh. And so a lot of it was just seeing it through that lens. And then also, like I said, I saw it on day one. That wasn't the finished project. That was just like I saw the bones, I saw the potential, but I also remained open to this evolution of discovery. So our whole process in renovating the jail was 5 years. And there were things that happened during that time that I responded to. Like, my design strategy is not fixed. Like, it's a conversation, and that building especially, like, it was a journey of discovery. So I saw the vision on day one. Some of the specifics shifted over time through this process of like, I think being in the space, like, one of the things that was really important with that project is that because we bought it at a property auction, the price was really quite low. And so there was no clock in the beginning. Like, if you pull a trigger on a construction loan, like, the clock is running. Like, you're immediately like, time is money. And so because we bought it with cash, there was no clock. So I could go in there and think, have a beer, walk around, smash a hole in something, see how it feels, you know? Like I did that for like a year. I'm like, what if we knock this thing over? What does that do? And so that was a really beautiful way to like create a relationship with that space. And that's how I thought about it, you know? But again, always sculpture. And I think ultimately the jail is a social practice art installation. I think the physical building is a sculpture, but that whole project is, you know, it's about transformation, readaptation, you know, it's creative, readaptive architecture. But for me, it's really about how do you change what the space is doing. And so again, like with a background as a vessel maker, that's how I think about it. Like make a vessel, see what fills it. It's just a container. And again, I've intentionally not overly dictated what that is. Like I let it kind of build on its own organically, like the things that we're doing at the jail, with Zadie's and the music program and, you know, the ballad swap. And, you know, I had an idea about that, but some of the details I let work themselves out. And, you know, the whole space is also designed as a living history museum. And that's really important to me as an Appalachian American. Like, and also like another concept is, you know, it was a jail. And so the history of incarceration is my strategy with that was like the concept of incarceration is so inherently negative. And I was like, what if we just all acknowledge that and just kind of actually set it over here for a second? Not in the way that we're like, you know, whitewashing it or, you know, like we all agree, right? But I'm like, just for a second, we're going to set it over here so we can not get trapped by it and stuck in this like negative loop. And let's figure out what happened here. Like, what was the story of this place? Like, who were the people in this place? Like, I wanted to always work with the history of that building because, you know, people would always be like, you got to say something about disproportionate incarceration of minorities. And I was like, that is super real and a big issue, but it is actually not my thing, like not my place, not my lived experience. Like it feels like really insincere for me to start making commentary on that because that's not the history of this building. Like the Madison County Jail is not about disproportionate incarceration of minorities because it just isn't it's a pretty white place. And it's, you know, it's about poor Appalachian American Caucasians. I mean, that's really who was in that building. Anyway, so instead of running away from all that, you know, I just ran towards it. I was like, let's just head on. Let's figure out what happened here. And it actually opened me up to like a bunch of surprising things that I was surprised by. You know, like I said, I had an anti-authority streak. I've never particularly been, you know, down with the cops. And you know, I met a lot of people in law enforcement. And more than anything, I met a lot of people that just worked there. And I always tell this story, like Geraldine Brown she was the dispatcher at the jail for 26 years. And she's like my favorite person I met. And one day I was talking to her and, you know, she just said this thing. She said, you know, I knew all those boys and I knew their situations. And that is what hit me, man, because I totally understood what she was saying. And she said, all I ever tried to do was help. If they were hungry, I would just make them a sandwich. And I think that was like the beginning of Zadie's for me. I was like, that's what we need, man, more sandwiches. Just let's do sandwiches. Like, I'm not trying to fix the world here. I just want to make my little part of it a little bit better. And I think sandwiches can do it. Like, you know, what if we just did sandwiches? And it's been true. Like, I mean, I think we've done an amazing thing there, and we just serve sandwiches. I mean, it's more than that, but.
Well, part of the story of this place, though, is that you've essentially, because of the hurricane, had to rebuild this same building twice.
I know. Did it again.
So you spent more time rebuilding it than it was.
It's true. We're about 6 years in construction, 3 years in operation.
Well, for folks that don't know how Hurricane Helene hit Marshall specifically, can you just describe water level and how that happened?
100%. I remember so the flood was Friday, September 27th. And I remember on Tuesday of that week being like, is there a hurricane? Like people were like, no. Wednesday, I'm like, I think there might be a hurricane. People were like, yeah, we heard that, maybe. And then Thursday, I was like, I think there is a hurricane. I think it might be kind of a bad one. I mean, so that's how that week went. Just to give people an idea, dude, we had no concept. The day of the flood, I woke up and, our disaster, it's different in different regions. The whole Western North Carolina was affected. And in Madison County, we didn't really get the wind that bad, and we didn't actually get that much rain. We got a lot of rain, but I woke up 6 a.m. Friday morning, went outside, and my little creek at my property was not even flooded. So my first inclination was, dude, it missed us. Then I went to Marshall, and, we were expecting water up to our knees. Marshall is a town right on the French Broad River. It's flooded before. No one there is under any illusions that it's we know it's going to flood. I renovated that building planning on a flood. We thought we were going to get water up to our knees, which would be a pretty bad flood. That would be up there in the top 10 floods ever. When I got to Marshall, I just realized it was something totally different. It was immediate. You were like, oh shit. I'm pretty we got this energy, and you could just tell. So 9 a.m., it started coming over the railroad tracks, and that hasn't happened since 1977. That was the last time it came over the tracks. And it just a wave. So in an hour, from 9 to 10, there was 4 feet of water in the town. And, I had been sandbagging the day before. I did a whole day of storm prep. I took all the equipment and put it up on blocks, I'm putting everything up high. And I had 12 feet of water in my building when I thought I would have 2. And my whole town is underwater. And it just the quickness, everyone always says it happens so fast, because it does, because it just is. I'm crazy, but I'm not dumb. I had an evacuation strategy. I had a plan, but I was there. I mean, I was at the jail, and then I went from the jail to the courthouse, and, sat on the steps of the courthouse and watched it happen for 2 hours, and just the water just come up. And this is my town. I live in a town of 850 people. We know each other. These are not just buildings. These are my people. They're not just businesses. They're my friends. It was gut-wrenching and heartbreaking. And then, the water came fast. It left fast. I was in there the next day, the next afternoon, still flooded, but, you could get around. It wasn't dangerous. I went in my building, the whole first floor was underwater. There's no water line in the first floor, and everything is just been picked up, put back all wrong, and 8 inches of mud. And in that moment, I just remember feeling it's over, it's done. Feels the gravity and the completeness of the destruction. There's no building in my town that was not affected. And it just feels overwhelming. And then this amazing thing happened. No cell phones. So people can't even talk. And I woke up Sunday morning and it was like, floating outside of your body kind of stuff. Like I've only had this happen a couple times where I feel like I'm watching myself from above, like completely unsure of everything is in question. And, like, do I eat breakfast? Like what are we doing today? And I just remember thinking like, well, I'm going to go to the town. I have no idea what's going to happen. It wasn't like I'm going to go there and start digging out. I was like, I just have to go there, and I don't know what happens next. But when I got there, like, man, they were just already there. And then people just kept coming, and like, it just happened. I was like, I guess we should maybe start digging out. And people were like, I got a shovel. Someone's like, I got a wheelbarrow. Then someone's like, I got a track hoe. I got a dump truck. I saw a lady with a mop, just like a mop bucket, like walking down the street. You're just like, good on you. Like whatever you had, you just brought. And we just started. And that was the thing, man. Like that's what saved the town for me. Like just starting, like it's so overwhelming. You just have to start. You can't see the end. You just see the 10 minutes in front of you. Like it's so play by play. And then at a certain point, you're like, man, I think we might have something here. Like, I think there's something here. And you realize, like, my big takeaway from that was the stuff matters less than you think. The people make the place. And I was like, I went from saying our town, like my literal language was our town has been destroyed to, like our buildings were damaged. Like that's how it changed. I was like, our town is not the stuff. The town is the people. The people are okay. Like our stuff got messed up. We can fix this, but like my belief in the power of people, like it was my commitment to that place is stronger than ever. At the same time, my like attachment to it is lessened. It's a very interesting place to be because it feels like they're in contrast to each other, but it actually like really allowed me to let go of stuff and like in a way that my commitment is stronger, but just my attachment is less because that's what I learned from it, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, water it will make you feel powerless.
Yeah.
You know, because it's going to win. No matter what.
Dude, it wins. I mean.
Well, part of the watching you go through this, and granted, we haven't talked about this in depth. This was just watching you talk about it on social media. At some point, the sort of state apparatus shows up and politicians then want to talk to you, and everyone from regional politicians to the governor. So it strikes me as like that's a whole different thing. Because like as an entrepreneur, you're building something and you're, like you talked about, it's like a vessel. You're trying to fill it with love, with people, with commitment to the town. But then a politician is just looking at you as a disaster. So how did you interact with kind of that part of the disaster, talking to the media and the public?
Yeah, so I think a couple things. The fact that we didn't wait on anyone, I think was really key. Like for us and for our relationship to that space. Like we just started. And then, you know, as people came in, we were like, great, get to work, get in where you fit in. Like when the National Guard showed up, we were like giving them orders, dude. Like, we got this, dude. Like we already had done it. And so, you know, when people showed up, like, again, my whole thing is about trying to build relationships and, you know, I need to get my needs met. And my needs, when I say my needs, like I consider myself an ambassador for the town and for the region for whatever role I can play. Like every news interview, everything I have ever done is all in service of the place. It's not about, look at me, Josh Copus, I'm on the news. I actually hate that. And, you know, there's people that will make a comment about that. And I don't like being on the news. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm doing it because I think it will help us. I'm also not unaware that I am good at it. and it was sort of a default.
Yeah.
Because those people are showing up to my town and they're just like, who do we talk to? And people are like, talk to Josh. Like, he'll do it. It's a little bit like that. Like, he'll do it. And so I was like, yeah, I will do it. I'll do it. I'll do it really good. And I hope it'll help us. And it is helping us. And like having the governor as an ally is it's great for the town. It's great for our region. We need those allies. And I'll talk to anyone. And, you know, politically, it like, I think one of the beautiful things that I hope we can keep in our hearts and keep in our minds is that, and this is what I always believe, I try to activate the world in this way as much as possible and this is what I learned in Floyd growing up. We have more in common than we do that separates us. And if we can all see that, I see that through a lens. I'm a Democrat. I'm proud of it. I live in a county that voted 60% for Trump. When people talk to me, they're like, how can you live there? I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? You think it's like the news every day? You think we're like shooting each other and fucking hate riots? Like, no, those are my friends. And I connect with them in the ways that we have in common, which is the majority of ways. Like, and like knowing some rednecks is good, dude. Like, I got guys I'll call. I got a guy for that, you know? Like, and it's not this bad thing. And when like a disaster happens, it really makes that obvious because it does not matter what color hat you're wearing. It really doesn't. It never did. It mattered way less than you thought. And the world would want us to be divided, but you know, like when something like that happens, you're just like in it together. And there's relationships that, you know, I was struggling with for a variety of reasons, that there was some light that came in on some of those things, and some people in my town that, you know, this is one of the reasons I fit in Marshall so good, because I'm not from Marshall, but I am from Appalachia, and I understand it, and I speak the language, and I get it. And they're right to be skeptical of people moving in. There is a history of extraction, and there is a history of stereotyping, and I bristle at that stuff. Like when anyone says Beverly Hillbillies, I'm like, get out of here with that nonsense, dude. Because Appalachian people, it's a wonderful people, and I'm proud to be a part of them. And you know, so like I get it. Like, and there are people in my town that were like, I've been there for a long time, and they still didn't really accept me. But during the flood, they were like, dude, that's one of our people now. Because you live through that together, and when you're in the mud together and like doing it, there's a thing that changes in you forever, and you can't explain it. And the weirdest stuff for me after the flood was when I would leave and go into the world. Like the only place I felt even halfway normal was like in my destroyed town. Because everyone there, I just look at you. I don't have to explain it because you know. And then you go out in the world and you're like, nobody knows. They don't have any idea. They're just going about their business. Like nothing happened. Yeah, I mean, the flood was the worst thing, but I've always tried to see silver linings and see the beauty in the dark places. And I think art's really important for that. You know, we made a lot of good art. And for me, it wasn't pottery. I just, you know, I didn't have it in me. I just felt like pottery was kind of stuff at that point, and it wasn't what I needed to be working on. And so I worked with my community, and you know, we made an album in the jail called The Resonance Sessions. It's incredible. It's 35 artists. It's recorded in the shell of the building. There's dump trucks in the background. It's beautiful, man. Artists came out from all over, and it was a healing experience for them, for me. It's a fundraiser for the music community in my county in Western North Carolina. Like, those are the things that I'm proud of artistically. And I found my way back to ceramics. I mean, I always will. It's the source. Everything I do comes from that. Comes from 15-year-old Josh getting Tom Phelps putting $1 in his hand and saying, the thing that you made, someone wanted enough to pay for it. And I'll live the rest of my life and like never forget that moment.
Well, to wrap up, can you let people know how they could both come to the hotel and check out your pots?
We're open for business. And actually, people are always like, how can we help? And I'm like, the best thing you can do is come. And, you know, the flood was a natural disaster, but there was also an economic disaster that occurred alongside of it, on account of it, but sometimes not directly. Our whole region, you know, we have an interesting relationship with tourism, and there's a lot of people that like to, you know, tourism. But I'm like, dude, just love it or hate it. This is the economy that we have. And so, you know, people need to come, and there's still a lot of beautiful stuff. I mean, it wasn't all messed up. Like, Western North Carolina is an incredible area, and it's my forever home. As a Virginian, there will always be a part of my heart in the Commonwealth. But you know, it's Western North Carolina and Southwestern Virginia are more close to each other than Raleigh and Richmond. You know, like, we're the same people. They're just two different states. So yeah, oldmarshalljail.com is the website for our hotel. It's our website is our booking engine. You know, that's the best way to find us. And it's an art hotel. It's a unique experience. It's, you know, not a cringy jail theme park. It's very tasteful. You know, it's very well done. I have many architects that have, you know, complimented me on my design sensibility. I'm very proud of it, and our whole town is open for business. So, yeah, Zadie'sMarket.com, Zadie'sMarshall.com, same thing. Come hang. I'll give each and any one of you the VIP tour. I'm good at hospitality. I love it, and I genuinely love people and sharing it. And I think that's one of my, you know, final takeaways is I have this belief about creation and art and pottery and any of it. Like, I'm an enthusiast. That's one of my assets. And, you know, it can be a blessing and a curse, but I just believe if you're like excited about what you're doing, the chances of it being good are high. And so I just try to be excited, and I'm excited about this. I love this. So come on out and share it with me.
Well, sounds good, man. Thanks.
Heck yeah, Ben Carter, A++, 10 out of 10 would recommend.
I'd like to thank Josh for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to catch up with him at the Utilitarian Clay Conference at Aramont. I did want to thank Lindsay Rogers and the rest of the Aramont staff for their help in doing these interviews, as well as for inviting me to be a part of that conference. Before we go, I'd like to thank today's sponsors. That's Monkey Stuff, the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art, and Cornell Studio Supply. If your organization is interested in becoming a sponsor on the show, you can get in touch at talesofaredclayrambler.com. I'll be back in a couple weeks with another episode. Thank you all for tuning in. If you'd like more information on the artists on the show, or if you'd like more information about the workshops and events that I'll be having in the next couple months, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under Carter Pottery. Another great way to support the show is to leave me a comment on iTunes. To do that, search Tales of a Red Clay Rambler under iTunes podcasts and you'll find a page that's linked to our show. Thank you guys for the support.